Hello. Today I will be talking to you about 12 SSS USH 10 identify legal, political, and social dimensions of Reconstruction with my partner Cameron Shearer, and my name is Joy Johnson.
Hi, my name is Cameron Shearer, and like my partner Joy said, we will be doing number 12 standard SSUSH 10, which is identify legal, political, and social dimensions of Reconstruction. And I hope you guys enjoy.
Hopefully you will enjoy this presentation starting now. Comparing and contrasting presidential and congressional Reconstruction. President Johnson's impeachment to recenter the Union states had to swear allegiance to the Union and ratify the 13th Amendment. He was willing to pardon high-ranking Confederate officers and favored states' right on issues such as giving African Americans the right to vote. He did not support the Freedom Bureau, and he took a conciliatory approach. President Lincoln's assassination supported the Freedom Bureau. He created schools, hospitals, industrial institutes, teacher training centers, and he distributed food and clothing. He supported the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which outlawed black codes. The passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment required to recenter the Union's divide, and he divided the South into 5 military districts. He supported the equal rights for African Americans. 12B states investigate the efforts of the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands to support whites, former slaves, and American Indians. The Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands were commonly referred as the Freedmen's Bureau. It was created by Congress on March 3, 1865. It fashioned to provide temporary one-year assistance to former slaves and destitutes, whites, in war-ravaged Souths. In July of the following year, Congress prolonged his life over President Johnson's veto. 12C states describe the significance of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was important because it created a constitutional amendment that banned slavery in all of the American states. The Emancipation Proclamation, although frequently credited for abolishing slavery in the United States, only declared slavery illegal in rebelling parts of America. So basically, within the Confederacy, states fighting for the Union who had slavery systems, Maryland, West Virginia, East Tennessee, were not required to free their slaves. The passage of the 13th Amendment addressed the issue and formally outlawed slavery in the territorial U.S. The 14th Amendment offered an antidote to these discriminatory laws by guaranteeing to all members of the race due process of law, which requires the legal system to provide fundamentally fair trial procedures and equal protection of the law, which requires the government to treat all persons with equal concern and respect. The 15th Amendment was important because it gave African American men the right to vote. It was passed in 1870, and it stated that the right to vote was guaranteed to any person no matter their race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Although the amendment was passed in 1870, there were other ways of keeping black men from voting.
D. Explain the Black Codes, the Ku Klux Klan, and other forms of resistance to racial equality during Reconstruction. Black codes were some of the efforts enacted to oppress and disenfranchise blacks in the South. Nearly all the Southern states would enact their own black codes in 1865 and 1866. While the codes guaranteed certain freedoms to African Americans, including the right to buy and own property, marry, make contracts, and testify in court only in cases involving people of their own race. Their primary purpose was to restrict blacks' labor and activity. Jim Crow laws were laws that were developed after the Black Codes. In 1883, the court ruled that the 14th Amendment kept state governments from discriminating against people because of race, but did not keep private organizations or individuals from doing so. This allowed railroads, hotels, theaters, and other businesses to legally practice segregation. By 1914, every southern state had passed laws that created two separate societies, one black and the other white. Blacks and whites could not ride together in the same railroad cars, sit in the same waiting rooms, use the same washrooms, eat in the same restaurants, or sit in the same theaters. Blacks were denied access to parks, beaches, and picnic areas, and they were barred from many hospitals. The Ku Klux Klan was a hate organization that has employed terror in pursuit of their white supremacist agenda. Their first group was founded immediately after the Civil War ended, and it lasted until the 1870s, and a second group began in 1915 and has continued to the present. White supremacy is the belief that white people are superior to others simply because of their race. Before the Civil War, racism and white supremacy were common ideas in both the North and the South. After President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, when Union troops began to fight for the abolishment of slavery, Northern attitudes shifted slightly, and many felt that blacks deserved equal legal rights and equal protection, even if they were not considered socially equal. In the South, however, white supremacists did not believe blacks should have any such rights. During Reconstruction, white supremacists formed political and social groups to promote whites and oppress blacks, and to enact laws that codified inequality. The Ku Klux Klan and the Knights of the White Camellia were secret groups, while members of the White League and the Red Shirts were publicly known. All four groups used violence to intimidate blacks and Republican voters. Their efforts succeeded, and with the end of the Reconstruction in 1877, white supremacy became the reality of the South. E. Analyze how the presidential election of 1876 marked the end of Reconstruction. The election of 1876 between Rutherford B. Hayes and Democrat Samuel Tilden was one of the most hostile, controversial campaigns in American history. At the Republican National Nominating Convention in 1876, the party was split between one faction, who supported a third term for President Ulysses S. Grant, and another faction who supported the nomination of James G. Blaine, Speaker of the House of Maine. As a compromise candidate, Rutherford B. Hayes earned the party's nomination on the 7th ballot. His reputation for being honest, loyal, and inclusive gave him a break from the charges of dishonesty and misconduct in Grant's administration. Tilden won the popular vote by approximately 250,000 votes and led in the Electoral College, but 19 votes from 3 Republican-controlled states, Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina, remained disputed. Oregon's count was also challenged. There were allegations of widespread voter fraud. The Democratic and the Republican parties in Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina each sent their own conflicting ballot results to Washington. There were 2 sets of results from each state, with each party's tally declaring its own candidate to be the winner. This forced Congress to set up a special electoral commission to determine the winner of the election. This special commission was composed of 15 congressmen and Supreme Court justices. The commission finally announced their decision 2 days before the inauguration. The vote was 8-7 along party lines to award the disputed Electoral College votes to Hayes, making him the winner. This was a compromise of 1877, which awarded all 20 electoral votes to Rutherford B. Hayes. In return for the Democrats' acceptance to Hayes' election, the Republicans agreed to withdraw federal troops from the South, ending Reconstruction within his first year in office. And that will wrap it up for me and Joy's presentation on SSUSH 10, Identify Legal, Political, and Social Dimensions of Reconstruction. And here's our bibliography.
Well, this is the end of our video. Hopefully you like and subscribe down below. And our video is done. Bye.